Welcome back to Lightroom, and we're going to give you a summary of Session 2. Session 2, we did a bit of a practical run-through of a lot of what we learned in Session 1, and then we moved on to the Develop module. We won't necessarily go over everything here again today because you can just watch the other video, but one thing that we might remember is changing catalogs or creating new catalogs. So here we have our library view, our library grid view. If we go up to the top bar here, beside Lightroom Classic, it says File. Click on that, and we get a couple of options, New Catalog and Open Catalog. Since we in class will be using computers that are not our own, and they might have their memory reset at some point, it's good to know where this is. New Catalog, if you clicked on this, it will bring up this particular dialog, and you could select a location such as the USB stick, and you could give it a name and then click Create, and it will create a new blank catalog for you. In our case also, we can go File, Open Catalog, and here we will get a dialog that shows us, in this case, the last folder where I opened a catalog, which is right here. Now let's imagine you open up Lightroom and this is empty of photos, and you want to find your current catalog, the one in use. You can click File, Open Catalog. Here, it's going to automatically bring me back to the last place where I opened a catalog from. But in your case, you could go to your USB stick and find your catalog. If the screen behind was blank, mind you, find it and click Open, and it will open your catalog. Another tidbit that can be really helpful is the Help menu. So if we click on Help, and let's say you can't remember a certain function or its hotkey or its location, you can just type it in here. Let's say flag. I need to remember how to do flagging photos. It will bring up a bunch of menu items, and as you scroll through them, it will show you exactly where they are. And you can either then go track them down in that menu, or you can actually physically click on the option, and if it's something that it can be accomplished by the program, it will do it for you and save you from having to go through that menu. Here I selected Filter by Preset Flag, and as we can see, I don't have any flagged presets here, so there's nothing to filter to. But with that, we'll move on from the Library module to the Develop module. Just click on Develop, and here you'll remember this man, who I'm going to just call Brad for convenience's sake. We now are focused on Brad. There's no option in Develop to go to a grid view. So when you are in Develop, you are looking at one photo at a time. Starting from the left-hand side, here we have our top bar. Nothing there has changed. We have our navigator. The navigator functions the same as it did in Library, with an important thing to keep in mind that you can click and drag around. This becomes important at some different times when we're in the developing options and lose our ability to scroll through the photo from top to bottom or left to right. If we look on the left-hand side under Navigator, we have presets. And these presets are sometimes bundled in with Lightroom in the case of a lot of the presets here in the menu. And sometimes they're sold by various photographers and YouTubers, or created by people such as yourself. And you can actually add your own presets, create your own presets to this menu, especially if you have something that you do often to photos. It can be really convenient to have it all stored here as a preset. Sometimes you might find that something that one of your favorite photographers or YouTubers sells might be interesting to you. I've definitely been guilty of buying some in the past myself. That said, I would lean more on presets as either something fun or a starting point, or using them in your workflow in a way where you're tailoring them to your personal style. I wouldn't necessarily put too much stock in presets that were made by other people as a one-click solution to a photo. I don't think they're really meant for that. Although sometimes they can be useful for getting around certain limitations that the program has. But that being said, they are here, and essentially all they do is they apply a preset. I know that's surprising given the name. Set of settings for the particular photo. So it's not necessarily something that you're going to only be able to access through a preset. But here, let's say I wanted to apply a preset. I would just hover over them. I can see the way that they change the look of the photo. And if I clicked on one, you can now see on the right-hand side, it's changed some of the default values. If I do it for a different one, it'll overwrite those values with the new values. Here I'm just going to hit reset in the bottom right-hand corner. Go back to our stock photo here of Brad. Now, actually one last thing that we should keep in mind when we have a preset selected, you'll see that this menu, which was grayed out previously, will become available. It'll show you the preset. It'll give you a slider with amount. So the default value is what it was intended to by its author, but you can reduce the amount it's applied or increase it. And that will just reduce or increase the intensity or strength of these changes here. So keep that in mind. Sometimes too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we'll see another selection here of choices. We have snapshots, history, and collections. Now snapshots will be blank here, and just bump exposure. You can create a snapshot by clicking on the plus symbol, and it will give you the ability to name it. In this case, I'll use the default name and click create, and this will give me a snapshot. Essentially, this is a bookmark for all of the choices I made with the file up until that point. So this gives you a way to go back and compare. Let's say I changed the file or the editing, and I, tried something new, and I wanted to see what I have now, how it compares to what I did then. You can just hover over it even and see the comparison, see the difference. Then of course you can just click on it and it will apply that set of settings. But let's say that you did not want to do that. You actually liked what you had previous to this and you clicked by accident. Don't worry, you can click into your history, and this history will give you literally a history of all the changes you made, every incremental change, every single thing that has been done to that file chronologically. So this is a way that where you can easily step back. Don't have to worry about having just lost all your extra work. Snapshots essentially are like a bookmark at some point in this history that you can go back to, but you can use them as a preset essentially. And then here below that we have collections, and again this is a way where you can go through and select certain photos. In the event you pick a photo or a collection that doesn't have the photo that you're currently working on, you'll find that it disappears, it goes away, and that might not be what you necessarily want. And you'll see the ribbon at the bottom changes. If I click on the one that I want, I can find the photo that I was working on again. And here we are. At the bottom of your photo view here, you'll see you have your singular view, you have your reference view. So here, let's say I had 2 photos. This is, a stark contrast, mind you, but you had maybe a different photo of Brad. You could select as a reference, and then the active photo of Brad. And as you change the various parameters, you can compare them and maybe get closer to what you're trying to do there with Brad, maybe match a certain color, etc., etc. Here, if you click the drop down, you can do a top and bottom, left and right, which is the default here. This is really useful for portrait orientation photos. Top and bottom just puts one on the top, one on the bottom. It's better for landscape view. Then here, we have before and after views. So we have our before and our after view of Brad. So we'll just make an adjustment and we can compare how our adjustment compares to our, in this case, before view. You can change things up by applying different settings from one to the other. So this is our before, this is our after. Say we want this to be our new before. We can come here, click this button in the middle. It will apply those settings there. And then we can, again, tweak our after and compare incremental edits. And here, we can actually just swap the before and after edits back and forth. And next to that is soft proofing. Soft proofing is a function that more or less is something you would use for printing. So you don't really need to use this or worry about it unless you're doing printing, but it just adjusts things to try and show you a bit of a different view, which can help you with printing. And then on the right-hand side of this bottom bar here, again, if we click this arrow, we'll have choices, different choices than we had in the library module, but some of them will be familiar, such as flagging or perhaps, ratings, etc. The ribbon and the associated buttons down here are largely essentially the same. If you go to the far right-hand corner of this bar here, just above the ribbon, you can see that we've got different options for filtering. So, for instance, we can filter by flagged photos, and it will show here in the ribbon just the photos that are flagged. In this case, one of the 88 photos I have in this catalog. If I unselect that, it will bring back everything here because nothing is selected. This is unflagged. It will show me all of the unflagged photos, in this case 87 of 88 photos, and rejected photos. In this case, I have 0 of 88. Same thing you can do here with the stars. And then if you click here, this filter, you've got different types of information that you can choose here. As I said in class, there are sometimes a lot of redundant ways to do a lot of different things in Lightroom. In that case, filtering is one of them. Now we come up here to the top right hand corner. We have the histogram, and then we have these 5 settings here, which give us access to different options. Now up here with the histogram, if you remember, we can click and drag on different parts of it to apply edits to the photo. In this case, what we're doing is adjusting the blacks parameter, but you can do the same for shadows, general exposure, highlights, and whites. Now, when you're using these, you are not essentially grabbing and pulling the graph. You are more or less just grabbing and pulling the slider. And if you roll over these, you'll see the histogram will highlight which portions of the graph you'll be working with. So boosting the shadows is the same whether you're using this bar or grabbing onto the histogram itself. The histogram also shows you some useful information about how the image was taken. And here we can see there's an original and a smart preview attached. So we could feasibly edit this photo while disconnected from the actual physical database, the folders on your hard drive where the raw photos live. Immediately below that, we have these options here. Here we have all our editing options. The next one is our cropping. The one after that is our healing tool, where we can do various healing actions, which is to say maybe a little clone stamping or a little editing to remove certain things, maybe a blemish or a dust speck or something to that effect. After that, we have red eye correction, which you can also correct pet eyes if you have photos of pets with reflective retinas, such as dogs or cats. They can have those glowing eyes. This can help with that. Not usually an issue anymore in either case, unless you're using pretty harsh flash. And then last but not least, we have masking here on the far right hand side. Now, while we did touch briefly on all of these options in session 2, we'll go over them more in session 3, and I will save the recap for session 3.